Okay. Show me.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dutch channel for an in-depth look in the Diatone Tyrant S, a 2017 model by Diatone. Now, as you are probably very much aware, this here quadcopter, the Crusader GT2, in this case a 200 size version, was a very popular model last year, and actually it's still very popular. They sell out all the time, and with good reason. I think it's a very nice quadcopter. So this year Diatone released this, the Tyrant S, and it's approximately the same size of quadcopter, but as you can also see, a completely different design. And in this video, as mentioned before, we'll take an in-depth look at this quadcopter. What is it? What is it? Is it not? How does it compare to the Crusader GT2? And why would you buy this quadcopter, or why would you buy the Crusader? So let's first have a look what comes with this quadcopter. Okay, let's get rid of the boring stuff first. You get a bunch of manuals. There are two manuals in this one and one in this one about the VTX and about the frame. It might be because I have one of the early production series, but I didn't have a manual for the flight controller this time. The Crusader GT2 did come with one, so again I think it's because it's an early production run. It's not a big problem, you can find those manuals online. Yeah, it would have been nice to get a manual for everything, but I don't miss them really. And these manuals Diatone makes are pretty detailed. I'm never left with questions after reading up on things in these manuals from Diatone, so pretty good. Just like on the Crusader GT2, you get a bunch of cables, and these are all spare cables. They are the same cables that are already in your quadcopter. You don't need to install these cables. The first time I got a Diatone quadcopter, the Crusader GT2, I thought, well, what is this? Do I need to go and install all kinds of cables? No, those are spares. So that's pretty nice. And there's a cable for your receiver in it. Well, your receiver will probably also come with a cable, so that's even a spare. So yeah, and it's nice to have spares. Maybe you want to replace things after a while in your quadcopter, upgrade the flight controller or the video transmitter, then you might need some cables for that. So nice to get a package of those. Then there is this package with two straps, one for your battery and one for the action camera. And those are the grippy with a layer of rubber or something on them, and they are actually very grippy. Regrettably, I haven't come across these Diatone straps separately as a separate item because they are pretty good. But well, you get two of them, so that's pretty good. You get a bunch of screws, most of the screws that are on the frame already, so spare screws. And you get some rubber O-rings. I don't think those are actually used in the quadcopter already. We'll see that in a minute. But if they aren't used already, you could soft mount your flight controller with those O-rings. So that's pretty nice as well. The quadcopter comes with one set of propellers. So no spares, and they are black as you can see. The specs say that the quadcopter comes with 45 propellers. They are not, they are 50-42. So the pitch is a bit less pronounced. That's not entirely a bad thing. These propellers might be less susceptible to prop wash oscillations. I haven't tried them, and they are very much like the Racer Star propellers. As you can see, they've got those anti-vortex tips, and they are pretty wide, 20% in, as you can see. I don't think those are bad propellers. I'll try them as well, of course. Those gold propellers you'll see on my frame in a minute don't come with the frame, obviously. I'm testing those. But I'll also test these propellers. They look pretty good. And the quadcopter comes with a right-hand circular polarized 4-leaf FPV antenna. Now, I'm not sure why they shipped the quadcopter with this antenna and not the Aomway-like antenna that the Crusader comes with. Is this a bad antenna? From the tests I've done with it, it's a decent antenna. You don't really need to replace it right away. It's a run-of-the-mill antenna, so to speak. Back to our quadcopter, the Tyrant S from Diatone. These golden shiny propellers are Gemfan propellers, and again I'm simply testing those. And let's see, they sit on 2205 motors. They aren't the same motors as on the Crusader GT2. In the Crusader GT2 you've got motors with those nice silver windings. In these motors you've got copper windings. Yes, this here quadcopter is around $60 less expensive than the Crusader GT2. So there are differences, obviously. Apart from the layout, this frame is more of an H style of frame, even though the front arms are angled forwards a little. It is a completely different frame. But again, apart from that, the cost is less as well. And you should, of course, expect differences between the two. And one of the differences are these motors. Are they bad motors? No, I'm sure they will work out fine. We will obviously also do flight videos with this quadcopter. For now, I assume these motors will be just fine. The ESCs, I'm actually not completely sure if they are... I think they are 30 amp ESCs, which is more than enough. And they are rated to run at 60 amp max for a short amount of time, of course, a few seconds. But 60 amps, that's pretty much far more than most other ESCs. And let's see, yeah, you get 4 prop nuts, of course, with this quadcopter, and I'm happy to see that these motors aren't clockwise and counterclockwise. All prop nuts are the same. Great. I love seeing that. Now this frame has the battery sitting on top of it. The Crusader GT2 has the battery strapped beneath it. This frame, well, actually you could potentially mount the battery at the bottom, but no, it's intended to go on to the top. And that's just fine by me. I actually like this setup. And at the front over here we see a action camera mount with a fixed angle, by the way, but the angle is around 35 degrees, I'd say, which is pretty good. I would call this an acro quadcopter, not a racing quadcopter. You could of course run these in club races, but in higher level competitions you wouldn't want a flat middle section, an elongated middle section like this. So again, I think this quadcopter is intended for acro use. And let's see, yeah, oh yeah, the base plate is all one piece. Let me flip the quadcopter on over so you can actually see. It's a one piece bottom plate, 4 mm thick. And that's the difference between this quadcopter and the Crusader GT2 as well. The Crusader has a 5 mm frame, this one is 4 mm. And just like on the Crusader, this is very high quality carbon fiber. There is no flex or twisting the arms at all. I really like the Crusader for that, and this one as well. The carbon fiber looks excellent, far better than on most other quadcopters. Now this might be hard to see, but there are a few small cutouts over here and a groove over here, and probably to reduce the weight a little, and that's a good thing, I think, a good idea. And this might actually be even harder to see. Over here you've got the mounting points for the ESC and the PDB, but there are also mounting holes further in to accommodate smaller flight controllers. You see those more and more these days, so that's nice and thoughtful. And when we take a look at the rear of our quadcopter, we see the FPV antenna mount, which pokes out straight to the back. Very good. And underneath that you see the XT60 connector. And in this perspective you can also see that this frame is very low slung, and you see more of these frames nowadays as well. I really like this setup. It is a little reminiscent of the Eachine Falcon Pro that also has a low slung frame. However, this one isn't as stupid a design or a weird a design. In this one you have no, at least I have had no trouble mounting my receiver inside of the frame. There are no connectors hanging off to the sides or anything. Very nice. Okay, so I told you we do an in-depth look to this quadcopter, so I'll take off the top plate. Now, to take off the top plate, the handiest way is to take out these 4 screws over here, and then the bottom ones to the front 2 standoffs. So 8 screws, and then you can simply lift the top on off. So I'll do that right now. Okay, 8 screws later and we can lift off the top plate. There we go. And as you can probably see, I've double-sided taped my receiver at the bottom of the top plate. Very convenient. As you can also see in the rear over here, there's lots of space for your receiver. And that's basically the only spot. Maybe you could cram a little receiver into the, just behind the FPV camera, but the rear is a convenient spot for your receiver, I'd say. Okay, so the inners of our quadcopter, and let's go over that top to bottom. At the bottom of the stack you see a power distribution board that runs almost the length of the quadcopter from here to here. And at the rear you see the XT60 connector, and let's see, this power distribution board is not part of the frame, by the way. It's recessed into the bottom plate, and it is held on by plastic screws, I think. Mostly by plastic screws. No, also by the standoffs. But this is far better, of course, than having it integrated into the bottom plate. Stresses in the frame don't get transferred into this power distribution board. And there's a thin layer of foam between the carbon fiber and that power distribution board. So there won't be shorting out between the two of those. And as you can also see, you've got 2 caps over here, the grey things. 2 caps over here, and underneath the FPV camera at the front you've got another 4 of those capacitors. So that is very nice, and better actually than on the Crusader GT2. This board has 2 capacitors per ESC, and that should lead to a cleaner FPV feed. We'll see, of course, if that's really true in our flight videos. But I'm very happy to see that, and quite luxurious actually. And again, better actually than the Crusader GT2. In the Crusader GT2 there's just no space to add so many capacitors, so very nice. And one surprise for me, and which is probably a little hard to see for you, but there are LED connectors or connectors, solder pads all over the place. Here is one, here is one, here is one, and here is one, and here is one. And on the other side of the board just the same. And those are all programmable spots, I think. They are 3-pad connector pairs. So you could rig out this quadcopter with lots and lots of LEDs. The quadcopter doesn't come with LEDs, but you could certainly make this a Christmas tree, if you'd so want. Maybe for nighttime flying, that should be very nice. Yeah, I probably will actually at some point add some LEDs to this setup. Very nice, and a bit of a surprise to me. And over here you've got a buzzer soldered onto the PDB. Very nice. A buzzer is mandatory, I think, for quadcopters these days, to find it back in long grass and to give you an audible warning for your battery voltage getting too low. It's also pretty clean, as you can see, this whole setup. Even though it's a low slung setup, things aren't crammed into it. Everything is done with connectors, and the wires aren't far too long. Very nice. And over here you see the pigtail cable for the FPV antenna. Very nice. Now underneath, over here, this is the flight controller. We'll get to that in a minute. Underneath that, and that's hard to see, is your VTX or video transmitter. And it's a nice transmitter. It has 4 output levels, 0 milliwatts, so pit mode, 25, 200 and 600. And there's a little button over here on this side, which you can easily access with the top plate on. A short press to that button will switch the channel, a slightly longer press will change the bands, and a really long press, around 5 seconds, will change the output level. There are 2 LEDs, it's hard to show you, and actually it's pretty hard to see the LEDs. From this side of the quadcopter, with the plate, top plate on, you can see those LEDs. So it's not impossible to see them. So if none of them are on, you are in 0 milliwatt. And if the blue one is on, you are in 25 milliwatt output level. With the red one on, only the red one on, you are at 200 milliwatts. And with both of the LEDs lit, you are at 600 milliwatts. And next thing, the flight controller, which is an F3 flight controller. What is this called? D-Link? I'm not completely sure, but it's revision 2 by Diatone. Oh, by the way, I forget, the VTX does not have an OSD. Maybe I'll upgrade that in the near future to the OSD version by Diatone. The same one that's in the Crusader GT2. But again, this quadcopter does not have an OSD stock. Okay, the flight controller. Now this hit me a curveball, so to speak. This again is the same flight controller that's in the GT2, the version 2. And yes, this quadcopter has a PDB, right? With the XT60 soldered onto it. This flight controller though also has a PDB. And it has its battery lead connectors over here, motor output connectors over here. So that is a bit weird. We have 2 PDBs in this quadcopter. What is going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. It's simply a case of Diatone having this board and not having an F3 board yet. Or maybe they don't really intend to, without an integrated PDB. So yeah, it's just the PDB in the flight controller does nothing. And yeah, that's not a terrible thing. I mean, it doesn't really add weight or anything. But it did confuse me a little when I opened the quadcopter up for the first time. And over here you've got an USB connector, by the way. Another thing I've done differently, by the way, than Diatone intends you to, they intend you, I think, to connect your receiver onto this port. I've used this port, which is the UART3. You can see the connector over here running to my receiver. UART3. And let's see, this board comes with Betaflight on it, so that's nice. It is a slightly older version though. It is Betaflight version 3.0.1, as you can see here. And Diatone advises you not to upgrade the firmware. That is probably because they don't want millions of mails from people that don't really know what they are doing, running into problems while upgrading things. You can put a newer version of Betaflight on this flight controller, and I probably will. There are drawbacks to that though. It is harder or impossible to get to the ESCs, to for instance check settings in your ESCs or upgrade the firmware in those when you have a newer firmware on your flight controller. So with that said, if you want to use for instance Betaflight 3.1.7 on this flight controller, first check all your ESCs and upgrade those to the latest firmware. Or another firmware, maybe you want to use D-Link firmware on the ESCs, which is possible, and then upgrade the firmware in your flight controller. Now, there was another surprise for me. Now, if you also have this Tyrant S from Diatone, I'd really like to hear from you if yours came with the accelerometer switched off. As you can see here in the configuration of Betaflight, the accelerometer is switched off. And that for me isn't a bad thing, because I always fly in acro mode. If you want to fly in self-level modes, you need that accelerometer and you can switch it back on. But again, mine came stock with the accelerometer switched off, leaving me without the auto level modes. And if you want to re-engage that accelerometer, you can. It's a simple click of that switch. However, you also need to dial down the PID loop from 4K, which is also stock, to 2K. Otherwise, your processor load will be too high. I'm really unsure why they, maybe they made that choice to ramp up the PID and gyro loops. And again, this is an FPV quadcopter, so yeah, auto level, you really shouldn't fly an FPV quadcopter in auto level mode. Just fly it in acro mode, maybe do some simulator training first. But yeah, for me this is an ideal choice. But again, yeah, tell me what you think actually. And again, I'd like to hear from other owners of this quadcopter if theirs also came with the accelerometers switched off. Okay, I'm gonna rebuild the quadcopter here and give you my final thoughts. Straight up, I haven't flown the quadcopter yet, so I can't comment on its flight performance or characteristics. I am very much looking forward to it, and I'll have a couple of flight videos in the near future, so you can get an impression of what it flies like and the FPV camera's performance. And the build quality and its appearance, I really like its looks. Is excellent. Again, just like on the Crusader GT2, the carbon fibers quality is great. It looks super. The only real negative thing I have to say at this point is that there are no provisions or no hardware added to mount or secure your receiver antenna. and I'll do that with some tie wraps as I always do, but the quadcopter doesn't come with anything to secure your antennas down with. And that's, well, if that's the only negative thing, I'm up with that. I'm good with that. So, yeah, this video is long enough already. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope this gave you some good information. If you are left with questions, hit me up a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer you. And yes, I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye bye.